Following the suspicious deaths of Gene Hackman and his second wife, Betsy Arakawa, all eyes are on Hackman's 3 adult children. Their youngest daughter, Leslie Anne Hackman, aged 58, now admits that she hadn't talked to her dad and stepmom in a couple months.
Hollywood has been shaken by the latest revelation about Gene Hackman's will, and the details have left many in complete disbelief. What is pre-planned? Was this an intentional decision? Or was there external influence that caused the drastic shift in how his assets were distributed? Hackman's youngest daughter, Leslie Ann Hackman, has inherited the entirety of his fortune, valued at an estimated $80 million. This unexpected decision has raised serious questions about why his other 2 children, Christopher and Elizabeth Hackman, were completely left out.
Gene Hackman had 3 children with his first wife, Faye Maltese. Their marriage of 30 years fell apart just as Gene's movie career soared. The couple divorced in 1986, and his relationship with his kids struggled.
Hackman, who passed away at 95 years old, had spent his final years living a quiet, private life in Santa Fe, New Mexico. For years, he had remained out of the public eye, focusing on his real estate investments and personal writing projects. However, the details of his final will have now sparked major controversy. FBI has begun looking into possible last-minute alterations to the will, raising further suspicions. With an estate of luxury properties, royalties, and significant financial holdings, Hackman's inheritance battle is just beginning. Legal experts believe there may be grounds for a challenge, but what happens next will depend on the findings of the ongoing investigation. Until then, questions continue to mount about whether Hackman's youngest daughter was always meant to receive everything, or if there was something more behind the decision. Gene Hackman accumulated a vast fortune over his decades-long career, which included earnings from blockbuster films, real estate investments, and book royalties. At the time of his passing, his estate was estimated to be worth $80 million, consisting of multiple luxury properties, high-value investments, and intellectual property rights. His financial success extended beyond acting, as he strategically invested in real estate and other long-term assets, ensuring financial security long after retiring from Hollywood. His wealth included a primary residence in Santa Fe, New Mexico, where he had lived in retirement, along with additional real estate holdings across the country. Hackman also continued to earn revenue from royalties and licensing deals associated with his past film projects. His estate was expected to be divided among his family members, but the details of his will confirm a completely different outcome. His youngest daughter, Leslie Ann Hackman, was listed as the sole beneficiary, while his other 2 children, Christopher and Elizabeth Hackman, were omitted from the inheritance entirely. Legal analysts reviewing the will have pointed out that such a decision is highly unusual for estates of this magnitude, especially when multiple heirs exist. Hackman had previously maintained financial stability for all of his children, making the decision to grant full control of his wealth to only one of them a surprising move. The will's contents are now being examined in detail, with authorities and legal experts attempting to determine whether it was modified under unusual circumstances. With reports indicating that the FBI has taken an interest in the case, the financial distribution of Hackman's wealth is now under scrutiny. The inheritance process is expected to face legal challenges as new developments emerge. Following the revelation of Gene Hackman's will, federal investigators have taken an active interest in the case due to several inconsistencies surrounding his death and the estate's distribution. Initial reports classified Hackman's passing as natural, but authorities have since uncovered irregularities in legal documentation, financial records, and digital transactions that warrant further scrutiny. The FBI is now working with forensic specialists and legal experts to determine whether any external influence played a role in shaping the final terms of his will. Investigators are reviewing the timeline of Hackman's final days, as well as any recent modifications made to his estate plans. One of the primary concerns is whether Hackman was of sound mind when these changes were executed. Legal analysts have confirmed that significant adjustments to high-value estates are rarely made without oversight, yet Hackman's revised will was processed under circumstances that remain unclear. The FBI is now investigating whether there was any manipulation or coercion involved in the decision to leave the entire inheritance to his youngest daughter, Leslie Anne Hackman. Authorities are also analyzing Hackman's financial activity in the months leading up to his passing. Reports indicate that large sums of money were moved between accounts, and certain assets may have been restructured shortly before his death. The nature of these transactions has led law enforcement to question whether Hackman had been advised to make these changes or if someone else had direct influence over his financial decisions. Another focal point of the investigation is who had access to Hackman's personal and legal documents in the weeks prior to his passing. With key records now undergoing forensic analysis, authorities are expected to determine whether his estate planning process was tampered with. The FBI has yet to release an official statement regarding their findings, but sources close to the case suggest that their involvement could lead to further legal actions. Until a full report is released, the circumstances surrounding Hackman's death and estate distribution remain under serious investigation.
Their youngest daughter, Leslie Anne Hackman, age 58, now admits that she hadn't talked to her dad and stepmom in a couple months before their bodies were found on February 26th, and had been dead for days or possibly weeks. Leslie lives in California, hundreds of miles away from the couple's multi-million-dollar home in Santa Fe, but she claimed they were very close.
With Leslie Anne Hackman named as the sole beneficiary of Gene Hackman's estate, speculation has grown regarding whether the inheritance was pre-planned or if changes were made under unusual circumstances. While there is no official confirmation of misconduct, legal analysts have noted that a complete exclusion of multiple heirs in favor of a single individual is uncommon, particularly in high-value estates. The timing of the will's revision and Hackman's health condition in his later years are now being closely examined. Estate planning documents show that Hackman's will was updated in recent years, though the precise date and details of those modifications remain undisclosed. Investigators are working to determine whether Hackman made these changes of his own free will or if external factors played a role in influencing the decision. If evidence suggests pressure, misrepresentation, or manipulation, it could lead to legal challenges from the excluded heirs. Financial experts reviewing the case have also pointed out that large financial estates often undergo structured planning to prevent disputes. Hackman, who is known for his private lifestyle and financial acumen, would have likely consulted professionals before making significant changes. Authorities are now looking into whether these modifications followed standard legal procedures or if any key figures had direct influence over his final decision. The FBI's involvement in the case has intensified the focus on whether there was a deliberate effort to alter the estate's distribution. The results of this inquiry will determine whether the will accurately reflects Hackman's last wishes or if there were external influences that shaped the outcome. For now, the inheritance remains legally binding, but as investigators uncover more details, the potential for a contested legal battle continues to grow. If the inheritance distribution was pre-planned to favor Leslie Anne Hackman, several key factors could have made it possible. Legal experts have pointed out that estate planning modifications, especially in the later years of an individual's life, can sometimes be influenced by personal relationships, health conditions, and external pressures. Investigators are now looking into whether any of these elements played a role in the complete exclusion of Hackman's other children from his will. One of the most significant factors under review is Hackman's health condition in his final years. While there were no public reports of cognitive decline, the FBI is examining whether any medical conditions could have impacted his ability to make independent financial decisions. If evidence suggests that Hackman was in a weakened state, legal experts believe it could support claims of undue influence. Investigators are also reviewing whether any legal professionals who assisted in drafting the will had prior relationships with Leslie or any other key figures who may have benefited from the changes. Another aspect under scrutiny is Hackman's isolated lifestyle in his later years. He spent much of his retirement away from Hollywood, living in Santa Fe, New Mexico. With limited social interactions, it is possible that certain individuals had more access to him than others. If Leslie was the only immediate family member who maintained consistent, direct contact, it could have given her greater influence over decisions regarding his estate. Authorities are looking into whether there was a pattern of restricted communication between Hackman and his other children, which could indicate an effort to limit outside interference in his estate planning process. Financial transactions leading up to Hackman's passing are also being analyzed. Authorities are investigating whether there were any last-minute transfers of assets, property ownership changes, or financial restructuring that suggest a deliberate strategy to consolidate his estate under a single heir. If records show irregularities, they could serve as evidence that the inheritance was planned with specific intentions beyond standard estate planning procedures. The results of the investigation will determine whether these factors contributed to the final distribution of Hackman's wealth and whether further legal challenges are likely to arise. With the inheritance solely awarded to Leslie and Hackman, legal experts anticipate that challenges to the will may be imminent. Hackman's other two children, Christopher and Elizabeth, have legal grounds to contest the document if they believe their father's final wishes were manipulated or if proper estate planning procedures were not followed. Attorneys specializing in inheritance disputes have pointed out that cases involving last-minute modifications to high-value estates often lead to legal battles that can take months or even years to resolve. One of the key areas of focus is whether Hackman's mental and physical condition at the time of signing the will allowed him to make fully independent financial decisions. If medical records or expert testimony suggest he was in a weakened state, his other children could argue that the will was signed under undue influence. Courts often require substantial documentary evidence and witness testimonies to support such claims, and investigators are currently reviewing whether Hackman had independent legal counsel at the time of the will's execution. Beyond legal challenges, family tensions have reportedly intensified following the disclosure of the will's terms. Sources close to the situation indicate that Christopher and Elizabeth were unaware of the changes until after their father's passing. If true, this could indicate that Hackman's decision to exclude them was not openly discussed, making it more likely that they will seek a formal challenge through the courts. Legal experts have also noted that if Leslie played an active role in facilitating the changes, it could further support claims of undue influence. The FBI's involvement in reviewing financial records adds another layer of complexity. If investigators find that estate planning documents were altered without following standard legal protocols, the will could be declared invalid, leading to court-ordered redistribution of Hackman's assets. For now, the legal process remains ongoing, and the final outcome will depend on the strength of the evidence presented in court. With the FBI reviewing financial records and legal experts evaluating the validity of Gene Hackman's will, the future of his $80 million estate remains uncertain. As it stands, Leslie and Hackman remains the sole beneficiary, but legal challenges from Christopher and Elizabeth Hackman could delay or potentially overturn the inheritance distribution. If the court finds evidence of undue influence, fraud, or legal violations, the will could be declared invalid, leading to a court-supervised redistribution of assets. Investigators are continuing to analyze estate planning documents, financial transactions, and Hackman's medical history to determine if he was of sound mind when he signed a revised will. If no irregularities are found, the existing will remains legally binding, securing Leslie Ann's inheritance without further complications. Legal proceedings could take months or even years, depending on whether additional evidence surfaces. If criminal misconduct is uncovered, individuals involved in tampering with the will could face criminal charges. The final decision will rest on court rulings and investigative findings. But until then, Hackman's legacy remains overshadowed by the ongoing legal battle over his wealth. The resolution of this case will determine whether his last wishes were truly honored or if the inheritance will face major revisions.